everyone. My name is Suela Langeni. Welcome to Book Circle Capital. We are an independent bookshop focusing on African literature. We've been around, Thando was just asking me, we've been around since September 2017. We moved here in March 2018. We do this on a weekly basis. And we're so honored that today we've got Thando Pato. How do I say your name? Pato. Pato. Yeah. Thando Pato. A well-known name, especially within the journalism circles. Thando is a writer. She's written for magazines like Elle, Marie Claire, Sunday Times Lifestyle, and O Magazine. And today we're discussing her book, On the Rocks, a memoir of a high-functioning alcoholic. When I saw this title, I was like, I gotta read this. You just had to. So welcome and thank you so much for making the time.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so we started talking about this in May when we're DMing each other. And I'm glad that finally today it's happening. So welcome to you guys. Thank you for choosing to be here. Some familiar faces, some new faces. Thank you for coming through. So now, Thando, we know that you're a writer, right? Journalism. And obviously, so writing is what you do. But how did this book then come about?
So what happened was, I've known Melinda since, my publisher, Melinda Ferguson, since I worked at True Love back in 2007. And we sort of stayed in touch, not really, but then she does motoring, and I worked for a German manufacturer. And she was one of our journalists. So we got in touch again and we started chatting. And I said to her, you know, I'd love to write a book. And she said, okay, about what? And I didn't know at the time. So we played around with ideas, but nothing came of it. And then in 2018, I did one of her writing courses in person in Cape Town. And during the break, I sat down with her and I said to her, you know, I think I know what I can write about. And she said, what? And I said, I have a problem with alcohol. And she said, okay. And I said, I think it's a book. But at that stage, we didn't say it, but we both knew that I had to get sober. And I wasn't sober for the book to happen.
Okay.
So we stayed in touch. I continued doing writing courses with her, exploring my voice, just trying to get into the book. But 2018 was such a, if you've read the book, such a busy and emotionally draining year for me. And the actual book came about in November 2020. I started writing it. I'd been sober for 8 months. And I would keep going to Mel, you know, touching base with her and saying, and she'd just say, just write. And during her writing course, she taught us to write for an hour every day, a minimum of 500 words, and leave it. Sure. And that's basically how the book began. And in February, I handed her the first 16,000 words. She came back to me 3 weeks later, and she was like, I really like it, continue. And then we went a bit quiet for a while, so I didn't know what was happening, so I stopped writing. And then in September, because she presented it to NP Publishers, and they wanted it, she came back to me in September, and she says, I need the manuscript by December. Go. And so, luckily I had written it. By that stage, I was about 40,000 words in.
Wow.
So it was basically just writing, finishing up, and thinking about how I want to tie things up. And I gave it to her in December.
Yeah.
And then we did between December and March, we did back and forth. You know, tweaked some chapters, rewrote some, but she liked it in its entirety. I think there was just one chapter where we butted heads a bit. Yeah. But otherwise, all of it, she was just like, wow. And then the ending I wrote because I just moved to Joburg. And she said it needed an ending. She said it needed some sort of finality or something.
Yeah.
So that was the book.
Wow. And I was going to ask you about, as I said, the book is easy, it's very easy to read, short and punchy. The chapters actually have titles, and you don't feel like it's long. You get a story, then you move on to the next chapter. And obviously, I guess even your journalism background shows through in how you're writing. But I wanted to ask you, like, were you writing daily, which you already said that you had to write 500 words
a day.
Daily. But the writing process, speak to us a little bit about that.
I was very intentional when I wrote this book in that I wanted to write an honest book. I wanted to write a book I would read. And I love vulnerable books. I mean, when I think about books of memoirs with vulnerability, I think of Glennon Doyle. I think of Elizabeth Gilbert, Eat, Pray, Love.
Yeah.
So, and I wanted to take the reader into my confidence. So I literally just wrote. Melinda said, write like everybody's dead. And that's what I did.
And I mean, that comes through a lot. There's no prisoners. I mean, you take us everywhere. And I read in the epilogue that you were a bit anxious when it was coming out, because it's like now everybody that knows you now really know you.
Yeah.
How did you feel about that?
Dude, like for the longest time, I think during the writing of the book, I had to fight with my own demons, because I just had this fear that Black Twitter was going to come for me.
Welcome, please come.
Come.
Okay, cool.
I was like, Black Twitter is going to come for me, like people, I was really nervous about it.
Yeah.
And at the same time as being open, in writing the book, I was also very careful not to tell other people's stories.
Yeah.
The focus is on me.
Yeah.
So I don't reveal other people's secrets. I don't reveal other people's stories. I don't go into a lot of detail about other people, except if they were in an intimate relationship with me.
Yes, smile maker.
AKA. Yeah.
Okay, and which segues nicely with my next question. The theme of relationships is quite strong. Your relationship with your mom, your relationship with your brother, your relationship with the guys in your life, aka smile maker, your friends, the role that they play in your life. So you and your inner circle. What were you trying to convey around relationships?
I think I was just telling I'm a person who takes relationships quite seriously.
Yeah.
Familial friendships, intimate relationships, and I guess I just wanted to show people that I was a rounded person. So when you are an alcoholic or somebody with a substance problem, it's not the stereotype of you're in the gutter, shit has hit the fan.
You're all alone.
You have people around you, but you harbor the secret, or there's this thing that you do in your own time, or people are aware of it and they try to talk to you about it, but because life is good, like I've got a good job, got a house, got a nice car, it's not a problem.
Yeah.
So I was just trying to show that, it's such a, alcoholism is a spectrum, is what I've learned in my journey into getting sober, and everybody is somewhere on the spectrum.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's the same thing with mental health. It's a spectrum, and you fall and just because I don't present atypical symptoms doesn't mean I'm not suffering.
So good. So over and above the alcoholism, which is center, which is the cover of the book, you go into the issue of mental health in quite depth, starting from revealing layers of anxiety and actually then going through the course of seeing professionals. Speak to us a little bit about that, because then it's smack bang into what we're talking about right now, and I liked seeing that in the book.
I did that on purpose. I decided I wanted people to come into my therapy sessions.
Yes.
So, and I'd taken notes, and there were certain ones that were burned in my memory because they'd been so life-opening. And you know, mental health is something, my best friend is, you know, she has severe anxiety. She's bipolar. So she was the only other person that I knew who had anxiety and who I sort of spoke to. But because I was so contained, and I talk about that in the book, and I didn't, she was the one person who knew the depth of it. So what happened in the book of me just coming undone is she's been actually dealing with that for years. And I wanted to talk about it because it's a reality. And I think, you know, a lot of people have anxiety. A lot of us suffer from mental health issues. And the world is not always understanding. The work world is certainly not understanding.
Definitely. And you go into detail about your experience at work.
Yes.
Where you end up being forced to actually leave.
Yes.
Yeah. And I mean, I love your sessions with Ingrid, who's the therapist, and you take us through every step of the. She's, you know, I also feel like, wow, I need an Ingrid in my life, and I was interested to know, are you still in therapy?
Yes, I am. I'm not as frequently, so you know, as I detail in the book, when I started seeing Ingrid, it was once every 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And then when my anxiety sort of spiraled, it was sometimes twice a week.
Yeah.
Sometimes even over the phone, like I'd call her and I'd be having a panic attack, and you know, she'd be taking my calls. And I think as our journey has unraveled, or as we've gone through our journey, I see her less, but it's not. It's just because I think one of the things she was very intentional about was she said to me, I want to give you the tools to live.
Yeah.
So these sessions are to help build you so that you can stand on your own.
Yeah.
I'll always be here as a sounding board.
Yeah.
But it's once you've done the work, the inner work, you will need me less. And so, you know, moving to Joburg in the first 6 months, you know, we spoke on and off. I went on a date yesterday and I messaged her, I'm like, I'm on a date. She's like,
Wow.
So, yeah, I'll have a session with her to discuss the date.
Wow. I mean, thank you so much for being so sharing about this. You know, I once saw a documentary about Amy Winehouse, you know, talking about her life, and her friends were sitting around the table and they were just evaluating how she went out, you know. And one of the friends are like, you know, she suffered so much about mental illness. And one friend said something so good. She said, Amy was in a time where these conversations were not happening. So we couldn't put a finger to it. People just thought, well, she was spiraling out, but actually there were deep issues. So, and she felt bad, the friend, that why didn't we see it? But we couldn't see it because then it wasn't part of the discourse. And I'm glad that now there's books about it, Twitter is talking about it, the news is talking about it, everybody's talking about it, and I'm glad for the steps that we're making. You know, I like you're talking about the work, because when you read the book, and as much as I applauded you for the work, sometimes I'm like, come on. You know, when you're standing outside the AA meetings and you're watching the people and you're not going to go in. A few times that happens. And I was like, speak to us a little bit about that, because I guess the journey is hard.
It is, you know, admitting you, I was actually doing an interview with a lady from Tribe Sober.
Yeah.
And there is this recovery group called The Tempest in the States. And they did a study. And they say it takes 9 years from the time that you discover that you have a problem to the time that you quit.
Sure.
And which is correct. So my first psychologist called me out as an alcoholic 2011, 2012.
Sure.
And I quit in 2020. And I knew in 2016 that I had a problem.
Yeah.
And I took a break in 2017, and I
Yes.
thought, oh, I'll just reset, you know. I got this. I can moderate. So it's an internal reckoning, and it's very, very difficult to sit down and sit with people and to open yourself up.
Yeah.
And I think also I wrote about my AA experience, but also there's so many ways to get sober. AA is one of them.
Yeah.
And you have to find the method that works for you.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because, you know, sometimes sitting in a room with complete strangers is, especially if you have social anxiety or anxiety, is not perhaps the best way for you to recover.
Yes. Yeah, which is what you're showing, because that didn't end up working for you, but other things worked for you.
Yeah.
And you were trying to show that there's this other side.
There was. Look, I don't knock AA at all. I just think I wasn't ready to be sober.
Yes.
So, like, I did find a group where I found people who are relatable, but I just was in the eye of the storm, and I just couldn't put the drink down.
And I mean, Thando goes into detail about this, so we're not going to do spoilers also because we want people to get the book, which you take us in about that. You talk about your relationships, intimate relationships, and how they also contributed to part of your anxiety. And as you were dealing with a lot, I mean, in your journey to be sober, there was then also the diagnosis with cancer. And how do you then, all of that, do you think that then it's part of contributed to where you were, but then the journey started a long time ago, as you say, that the psychologist called it?
The part of the reason I wrote about the relationships was also I think I was looking for something outside of myself in these people.
Okay.
And it I can say it now, but at the time I just thought I was dating.
Yeah.
But I had a picture for assholes.
Yeah.
I think with the smile maker in particular, when I think back on it, like, a part of me feels sorry for him, because you start dating this woman, and almost 6 weeks into a relationship, she's diagnosed with cancer. You cannot leave. You can't be that guy.
No.
You know what I mean? And so you kind of.
Yeah.
You're gonna.
Yeah.
This is not what I signed up for, but I don't want to be that guy.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And then in the midst of it, you just go, oh gosh, she's an alcoholic. Ooh. So it was a lot happening in the relationship. I'm not mad at him anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. No. And I mean, even later in the book, you almost make peace with it, because I guess people will always be who they are. You need to decide.
Exactly.
Yeah. And then and which is what you show us in your story with the Smile Maker. I love the fact that you also go into the issue about fertility, the decision to have kids or not, and you're almost like the freedom to decide, because society will have these decisions to say at this age this is what you're supposed to have done, and I just wanted you to just elaborate a little bit about that.
Yeah. I've always been on the fence about children. I love children, but not necessarily for myself. And when I was diagnosed with cancer, it sort of fast-forwarded the decision, because it was like, well, you're going to have chemotherapy, and so you're going to have to harvest your eggs.
Yeah.
And so now, again, I turn to the Smile Maker, where a few months into the relationship, do you want kids? And he's like... And so I go into this journey of harvesting my eggs, which, like, my body had been a lot through it. Through a lot at that stage. I mean, I just had my mastectomy. I mean, harvesting your eggs, you pump yourselves with hormones. and then I froze my eggs, and I did it as a, in case I want to ever have kids.
Yeah.
You know, that my doctor was like, we need to put you into menopause because your cancer is hormone receptive, so it's driven by estrogen.
Okay.
So everything that produces estrogen in my body has been shut down.
Yeah.
I even take hormone blocking pills because your thyroid produces
Okay.
estrogen. So, and then in 2021, was it 2020 or 2021? I have a beautiful nephew, Amari, and I had the amazing experience of, he was born, and a week later I helped my brother and my sister-in-law take care of him because my brother had to travel, and so I stayed with them for a month, and he's the first child who's become a part of my life, and like when I was in Cape Town, he'd come spend weekends with me, and I loved it. But I also realized I don't want to do this full time. I don't have the emotional bandwidth to do this every day. Like, this cannot be my reality. And so I decided not to have children.
Yeah. So welcome to everybody that has joined us since, on that note. So this is not going to be just you and me talking. You don't have to have read the book, but you know, you can buy the book afterwards. So far we've been talking to Thando about her book On the Rocks. She explained the writing process. We went a little bit into some of the themes she touches about anxiety. So if you have a question, feel free to stop me and raise your hand and talk. So I enjoyed, you already have one, okay.
Yeah, it's not more of a process. For me, it's more of an experience. That, for instance, every time you write a paragraph, or maybe every time you review the book, what sort of experience did it bring?
There was one chapter which was the work chapter, which was the hardest to write. And when I wrote it, Melinda read it, and she said, the problem with this chapter is you've written from the wound and not from the scar. And with the rest of the book, I managed to write from the scar. And I think that for me was the hardest part, because I had to almost step out of it, and I'm not the victim. I have to tell a story, and I have to take accountability for my part in it.
Okay.
I think the rest of the book, it was interesting reading because it was like, oh my goodness, like, especially when you're proofing and you're editing and you read it over and over and you get tired of your own words and you're like, oh.
Yeah.
But it was like, wow, I went through all of this and I lived to tell the story.
Yeah.
You know, because some people don't have that.
It's true.
That opportunity or that chance. Like, I went through this really painful experience, and I'm on the other side and I'm telling the story. And I think there was something very empowering and liberating about that. You know, like, nobody can ever use my story against me. It's my story. I've told it.
Yeah. Are there people that have felt that maybe you've misrepresented them in the book?
You know what? I have this one friend, and she hasn't read it, and that's what really makes me. She hasn't read it, and I changed her name, and she's not that big a part of it.
Yeah.
But her and her husband are so worried that I featured them, and I'm like, nobody's gonna trace that. You're not even that interesting in it. Like. The people who, you know, the Vereen Bussets of those people,
Yes.
those are their names, and they had no problem.
Yeah.
And I told them, this is what I'm doing. So I actually spoke to a lot of my friends before. I'm writing this book. Do you want me to change your name? This is how I've written you. This is how I've told your story. You know, the vast majority were like, go for it. you know, some were like, please change my name. And the change their name ones was interesting because their roles weren't even that interesting.
Yeah.
They were like sort of.
By the way,
Yeah.
this happened.
Yeah.
Okay. And Smile Maker, where is he? Has he read the book?
So Smilemaker did send me a message. The Smilemaker did send me a message, and we actually spoke in 2021, and I told him I was writing the book, and he'd be featured in it, and I said, but I'll change your name, and he said, thank you. And then he sent me a message saying he read the book and it was very well written, and I just didn't respond to him because I had nothing to say. Just like,
That's beautiful.
it's not about you. It's I'm past that. I'm glad you read the book. I hope you learned a lesson. Don't ghost women.
Yeah.
Oh.
And I mean, you build us up nicely with Smile Maker. It's a guy that Thando dates in the book, and I mean the first few months are amazing. You guys go out, you cycle, all these things, and then boom, you know, he just disappears. So that I did find like, okay, because you know we almost conditioned to always want to find that fairy tale ending and stuff, and you just went.
Yeah, look, I guess, you know, when I really stand back and if I'm really honest with myself, I didn't really know him.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Because we started this relationship, so much was happening. I was drinking so heavily. He was there, but did I actually really know him, and did he actually really know me? Not really. We were like in each other's orbit. We'd started this relationship, and then life got real.
Yeah, very fast.
Very fast.
There's a question there.
Thando, please, can you take us through a day in the life of an alcoholic? Now I'm just, you know, when you listen to somebody and you love your drinks, now I'm just texting her and I'm like, what if I'm that functional? So maybe like a day in, you know.
It depends. For me, I drank at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Like after a long, hard day at the office, I wanted to get home and have my wine. So swing by Woolies or whatever bottle store was open, get home, pop it open, have a first sip, of my bra, make something. Before I know it, the bottle's gone.
Oh.
I'm into the second one.
Okay.
I wake up on the couch, glass of wine sitting next to me. Oh my goodness, what happened? You know, now it's 4 o'clock in the morning, stumble to bed, wake up, hangover, you know, take pills, but you're doing it every day. Like it's...
And you show up for work.
And you show up for
wake
work.
up at that time,
You're so hungover. You show up for work, you have a greasy breakfast, you take some painkillers, you have a Red Bull, and you go.
And you go, oh, okay.
Yeah, and you go, and you keep doing it, and you socialize. So whenever there's a drink involved, you're like, "Yay,
I'm there.
I'm go, I'm there." You know, but while everybody else is chilled, you are like chasing them. You know, and you're leaving your car in Sandton and taking Uber home, and now the next day you have to wake up and get to Sandton and get your car, and so it goes.
Okay. Do you think that your job had a contribution to your journey with alcohol?
Definitely, it enabled it.
Yeah.
Because I worked in PR, and I, you know, in the motoring world, you know, journalists drink and they drink hard.
Yes.
You know, and I was with men a lot of the time. So, you know, and it was sort of like a big up to me. Oh, you can keep up with us.
Yeah.
Most of them falling out and are silly and drunk. You can keep up with it. Good on you. You know, and so I always had access to alcohol. I've traveled a lot, and so, you know, international flights, you travel in business class, you sit in a business class lounge, you know, you have the first couple of drinks, you get onto the flight, next couple of drinks, you know, you wake up before everybody else to make sure that you're fresh and bright, even though your head is pounding. Yeah. I was around people 24/7.
time.
I was at work, you're at the office, then you're traveling. I was never
Events,
alone. So
yeah.
I was exhausted and I was drained because I didn't have time to recharge. So I've learned that I need downtime, like serious me time. If it's me in pajamas the whole weekend, then that's what I do.
There's a question there.
So how did you get to the point where you decided that, okay, was it a big decision that, okay, or rather a big thing happened to make you think that, okay, now it's time to stop? Or was it always just little steps along the way to that, okay, I'm getting there, and then now I'm ready to quit?
It was little steps, and lockdown. Basically, I was living with my mother in Cape Town, moved to Cape Town for a job, and I was living with my mother, and she was very clear she didn't like me drinking. And then the president announced the lockdown, and if I was living by myself, I would have gone to Macro and got a trolley, but I only got 3 bottles. And once the 3 bottles were done, I was like, okay, that's it. But for 6 months, I questioned myself every day if this is it. Because it's like, the thing about getting sober is like you're at war with yourself. It's like there's the addict and there's you. And the addict always has good look, you just need it, you know.
Yeah.
You know, and my anxiety was sky high, and you're trapped indoors, and, you know, there's so much going on in the world. So the first 6 months were hell. Absolute hell.
What is, following on this question from V, what are some of the stuff you do now to ensure that then you're closer to your truer self that you found in this process? Practical things that you do daily to just...
Look, I think now I don't have them so much, but last year a big focus was exercise and meditation.
Yeah.
Exercise, meditation, therapy. And Ingrid every week, touch base, writing the book. I use the app Headspace.
Yes.
Did the daily meditations on there, group
Yeah.
meditations. And just, I think now what I do is I check in with myself. If something like yesterday after the date, I was like, do I like him? No. Okay. Whereas before there would have been a more drawn out process.
Yes.
Whereas
So now you trust yourself.
I trust myself, like I tap into myself a lot quicker.
That's good. That's so good. I enjoyed the sections with your mom. Because, you know, trying to be sober with mom around. Because first of all, it's not even supposed to be happening. And then she's watching you, you're having to hide stuff, but she's still there for you, which is what I love.
Yeah, no, my mom's a rock star.
Yeah.
It was not easy for her, and I mean she read the book from start to finish as well. So she was also just like, I didn't realize there was so much. I knew you were struggling.
Yeah.
But I didn't realize it was so much.
So and that's kind of, is it the same feedback from your brother too? Because the pact to actually be sober, how this kickstarts everything is you take the sabbatical.
Yes.
But the sabbatical is even like you're almost like waiting for it to happen. You're waiting towards when it ends, and you're doing it with your brother as a pact.
Yeah.
How's your how his reflections from the book?
I don't know if he's read it, and I haven't pushed him.
Okay.
Because I didn't push my family because I realized that it's, you know, because they're my family, it's harder for them.
Yeah.
So my stepmother read it in 2 days, and she read the unproofed copy, and she was like, wow, this is amazing.
Yeah.
My father's been reading it in bits and pieces, like every now and then he puts it down, and then he doesn't pick it up for a while.
It's
So
too much.
yeah, so and my brother, for my mother, she read it over a week, and she was just like, there were parts that were so hard. Like I was just like, where was I?
more questions. Can I take them then?
I was wondering, what type of changes did you have to make in your life when you decided to get sober, in terms of, I feel like so much of the way we socialize is around alcohol. It sounds like it was a big part of your job. There's so many external things that you couldn't control, but you're having to interact with the world and try to hold on to the sobriety. I think of similarly when someone quits cigarettes and the struggle to be around other people when they're smoking, and how that might trigger it. And so do you need to kind of step back from your friends and your social spaces, turn down invites, or what types of things are you're able to hold on to your sobriety?
I think I was very lucky, and I think part of the reason I struggled so much to get sober initially was because I was in Johannesburg and I was in my social circle, and it literally getting taken out of Joburg and put into Cape Town, and then lockdown happening. I literally had 18 months of isolation and time away from friends and any sort of social life, where I could build my sobriety muscle. And that's really what you have to do when you get sober, is you're building a muscle, and it's exercising. And so you have to, any situation that is going to tamper with your training, you get rid of it. Anybody who's going to tamper with your training, you get rid of it. You literally live in this bubble where you are feeding yourself until you feel strong enough to go back into the world. And when you go back into the world, you go back and you realize that one of the things I realized when I came back to Joburg is that there were relationships that were going to fall to the wayside. You know, and I made peace with it. I was like, okay, we'll see. And there have been, situations and people I'm no longer close to, and things that don't work for me, and what I want to do, like I want to hike more often, as opposed to go out for a long boozy lunch. But I can't sit with you while you drink, but at some point I get bored and then I leave. So it's not like before where I would ride down with you until 4 o'clock in the morning. Like, at some point I'm just like, I'm not having fun. This is not working for me. So it literally is, what I've learned is you build a muscle and you keep building it in different ways. And as the longer you get sober, things change. I'm very excited for Melinda's book. She's got a book called Bamboozled coming out.
Awesome.
And she's been sober for almost 25 years. But she's now writing about, from the perspective, I've been sober for this long, but I actually had to relearn myself and relearn certain things. So it's always this journey of coming back to yourself.
It's never ending.
Yeah.
And one of the stuff she talks about is leaving the Melville crowd, because there was a Melville crowd. Hopefully we're not the Melville.
Yeah, I was an extra at Poppy's, dude. Like Poppy's Melville. I was that girl.
Part of the furniture.
You'd find me there with my glass of wine.
So I don't know if this has ever happened to you, but I'm going to use weight as an example. You lose weight, you work very hard to get there, maybe you exceed the weight, and it's great for a while. And all the things that you did to lose the weight, changing your diet, eating healthy, blah, blah, blah. And you lose the weight and you're at this happy place, but slowly the cookies creep in and not needing to run creeps in. And so for my personal journey of healing and overcoming, there were certain things that I did that were literally life-saving. I have to do that 5K run today. If I'm at work, that's like the thing I'm going to hold on to. At 5 o'clock, I know I'm going to run with a running group. And those things, many little bits like that, help me. I have to journal, I have to this, I have to see a psychologist, like you're saying. And then you get to a place where you're great, you're okay. You're on your journey. I don't know if you can ever fully complete, but you're fully, you're getting somewhere where there's light. And
to ask from your perspective, when you stop doing the things that brought you to the place of healing, what is the anchor that's holding you forward? Because sometimes you don't need to keep doing the 5K run or the journal or the whatever, because as you're saying, you're becoming and relearning to be a new person. But where I am right now is like, I'm feeling so good. I don't need to go for that run. I don't need to do that thing, which is, maybe it's a good thing. But what has anchored you when you've gotten to that point and all these beautiful things and hard things help get to that point? But now it's the maintenance. And maintenance and moving forward. What are the things that are keeping you there or moving you forward?
I'm going to answer your story. I'm going to answer your question by telling you a story. So I think I've been very fortunate that when I moved to Joburg, I moved in with my dad and my stepmom. And it was almost, because I've been living with my mother for 2 years, and it was almost into another bubble. But they aren't strict like my mom. So I can smoke. It's like having housemates. But it's like been this bubble of love. And I've got complacent because I'm in this bubble of love. And so on Saturday, I'm moving out into my own place. And I've been thinking about it, that I'm going to have to go back to the things that anchor me. I'm going to have to go back to meditation. I'm going to have to go back to exercise because I'm going to be alone. And that is, I don't have distractions, you know, like sitting and watching TV with my dad or my dad's cooking or whatever. There's going to be a lot more solitary time. And that's where the danger comes in. And so I'm going to have to actually revert back to my anchors. I hope that answers your question.
Do you ever fear that you could go back?
Oh yeah, every day.
Sure.
Yeah.
It doesn't. It's every day. Every day. The thing is, when you go back, you can go back so flippantly. Like, even though you swear up and down to yourself, like, I can't tell you what the smell of red wine does to me.
Sure.
Still. It's still like, it's still jarring. It's still like, everything else I can take, but there's something about red wine that sort of has, that like, that for a second, it's like my addict wakes up.
Yeah. That constant fight.
Yeah, and then it's I like, you know, sometimes I have to go to the bathroom and just sit with myself, or I go outside and I have a cigarette. Or, yeah.
Wow.
So it's there, and that's why you have to be vigilant, because it's there. It doesn't go away.
Okay, let's take him and then we'll take it. Okay.
Okay, Thando, when you mentioned that, I think most addicts do what they do because there's a certain hole that they want to fill. I think I've come to a place of realization that everyone has that certain hole that kind of like doesn't feel like like you said, you had a perfect job, the perfect lifestyle, but there was still something that was missing. What then do you do when? Okay, no, I'll ask a simpler question. What do you think for you was that thing, that inner yearning that you just wanted? Yeah, just leave it.
I never felt, and I can articulate it for the first time, I never felt like I was enough. I never felt like I was doing enough. I never felt like I was doing life right. I remember going to my first psychologist, Liz, and I would spend like literally the hours crying, why am I doing life wrong? Why I don't have a husband? Why don't I have children? You know, and that was it. It was just not feeling enough. You know, and as I've got to know myself and like myself, there's an ease that I have in my skin that I've never had before. Never. And it's sort of like I'm basking in it at the moment. Because it's just like, oh, okay, this is what they were talking about.
Feels good. Wow.
So that, for me, that was the whole. It was just never, never, I think, until this year, felt comfortable in my own skin. I always felt like I was outside my body, watching myself.
Sure.
Yeah, well, for me, it's serious about the experience. Maybe there's two experiences that I think you took us through. The lockdown, no alcohol. The second experience is the parties, the economy, business flights and all of that. Access, full access, like until whatever time. And I mean, I think it resonates with one of these alcohol coaches that she always said that one of the things that makes it easy for middle and upper class to be alcoholics is access, because they can get it anytime. And secondly, there was a study which I was reading which talks about the executives, that either the executives will find them depressed or obese or alcoholic. Maybe then what's your perspective on the access to the alcohol?
Like I said, my job enabled me. You know, I've been in media for years, so, you know, you go to parties, you go, I talk about it in the book, that part of the reason I bought my apartment in Honeydew is because I had 6 bottle stores around me. I even had a drive-through.
And they don't have to profile you.
Yeah, they
can
don't
change.
profile me. Like, nobody's gonna be like, who's this boy? None of that. And then I discovered bottles, which was even better because it could come to my house. So it's definitely access. Do you know what I mean? And also the veneer of respectability, because you look like you have your shit together because you've got a job and it's demanding, and you tick certain boxes in society. Oh, you have a nice car, so she must, things must be together. She works at that company. Oh no, she does that job. Oh no, I've spoken to her. She's so articulate. She's not a bad drunk. She doesn't fall around drunk and vomit. You know, there's things that people, and you also buy into it as a person.
Yeah.
You know, you also make those excuses. I'm a really great drunk. You know, I don't fall about. I don't vomit. I don't embarrass myself. Like, I'll judge people. Like, imagine, I drank more than people, but I'll judge people. Like, if they fell asleep or vomited, I'll be like, oh my God. So, absolutely. And I think because alcoholism is so accessible and it's such a part of our cultural fabric, we can use it to mask things.
Yeah.
You know, we can. It's such a. One of the reasons it was so hard for me to stop drinking is that alcohol had become my best friend. Like, I could rely on it. It didn't talk back. It didn't judge me.
Yeah.
It did what it promised.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so important that we're even talking about this now. I mean, when the horrible tavern thing happened in the Eastern Cape, there was a video circulating of a guy that was talking about how we've made the reason why kids want to aspire to alcohol is we've made it look so nice. We've made it look so aspire. There's no way we don't gather and it's not there. I mean, you know. So why wouldn't they not want to be part of it? I love the fact that are there any other questions? Then I'm gonna.
I don't have a question. I just
Okay, I'll see.
complete or that you were able to stop during lockdown.
Yeah.
Because the entire world, almost everybody, there's so many people around the world who have been sober for years, and they
Yes.
relapsed during
Yes.
during the heavy lockdowns. And I've read the book, but I feel like I still want to have an afternoon just with you. Like, how did you do it? You know what I mean? So it's just. Wow.
I white knuckled it for the first 6 months, literally. You white, like you cry in the bathroom by yourself, you go to bed early, you have fights with yourself, you're in a bad mood, you're cranky, your anxiety, you're just trying to get through the day.
It's a fight.
What's your next book?
I'm still basking in this one. Let me have this one. Huh?
Yes.
Mood today.
Yeah.
Wow.
No, yeah, I'm literally just enjoying this one. And just because I think because I've suffered from anxiety, and so when I still suffer from anxiety, but not to the extent that I did. I used to live in the future or the past. I was never present. So I'm trying to be present and just enjoy this, and just let life happen, because that's basically how this book came about. Life happened.
You had something to say?
I wanted to say, like, I haven't finished reading the book, but I felt like it was so accessible and so easy to read, and I wanted to applaud you for that, because sometimes having to like open yourself up the way you did, or up to the point that I've read, I thought, wow, like I can't imagine having to relive the past 4 or 5 years or whatever, and now you have to do this, like market the book, have to do interviews and everything. I wanted to ask, how has the journey been post writing the book and having it in your hands, and probably the relationships, especially when it comes to work as well. What have you changed with the way you dealt with things back then in terms of your events, or like the relationships that you went through?
Okay. I think in terms of work, I left that world. I'm still in communications, but my job is thankfully very 9 to 5. And I work for a very nice group of people who are human. And I actually told them about the book before it came out, and they supported us, and they came to the launch, and they were amazing that way. And I think I have stricter boundaries around work and play and my time. In terms of the book, like when I held the first copy, I was so happy. It was like, wow, I made a dream come true. Like, I can do this. Like, I can live my life. I can actually, things that cook in my head, I can bring them to life.
Yeah.
And the fact that it was so well received, especially by Black women, that was very important to me, because that's who I wrote it for. I wrote it for Black women. So I've been happy so far. With the reaction, with the response, with like when people inbox me and tell me it's so honest, it's so real. It's like
You're writing me into history.
it's like, yeah, that's what
Yeah.
I wanted.
Yeah.
That, like, I feel like I have a purpose, and I've never really felt that before by telling my story.
We'll take the last two here.
And I think mine is more of a comment than a question. And kind of saying, like, just sitting here and watching you tell your story has been just amazing. Like, the times being I was there, mono mama, like, it's great how you just shared it and you're just vulnerable and honest about it. And I'm just actually glad that I came with my girls today to in the same room to kind of hear about these things. I mean, they're preteen, going to be exposed to so much, and I'm actually planning to buy the book for them to read. And it's nice that they actually saw you as well and became really personal, I can touch and be like, okay, it happens. Maybe it's stuff that I can't necessarily share openly, right? So I'm going to use your book as a little reference at this point in just my little parenting journey. But thank you so much. Thank you for sharing a story and really just putting it out there, because those are realities right now, and we don't really talk about it honestly, I think we
Yes.
just kind of view it at TV. Oh, Zule, Tabeni, and then it ends there.
Yes.
Pretty much, you know. It's not just like guys, you know, like it's not really personal. So I think this book is really gonna make it really personal for us. So yeah, thank you so much.
Welcome. Thank you.
I love that because books become conversation starters, especially like in a parenting setup where you don't want to be the one to say, I've done it. Because they think you were just born like this.
Thank you. So Thando, now like this is the other question I had, but now you mentioned the Black experience, so I wanted to now. So moving from that, so I remember being in the FISMAS for like meetings and all those things, and one thing that really saddened me was that we all like there was this grief, and that we would find some form of like there'd be a bottle that is being passed around. There's things that like we have. And you said you wrote it for Black women especially. There's things that now in the post-apartheid era, like there's how do I put this? With alcoholism and with dependency and with wanting to be that Black excellence, there's also something that also you takes back from you, because now you can't go home and say, I failed a module, I dropped out, I did this, and then you have these things. And even after you've graduated, you can't go home and say, I hate my job. Because they paid and they made sure that you came back with this degree. And now you want to say, I want to quit my job and look for something else. Like there's something that is taken back with Black people because of, I don't like the word, but Black tax, and also also just the experience that is going to be a bit more different, because I don't have something to fall back on. I don't have, you know, and then I just have to be this, I just have to push, I have to get this degree, I have to, and that, like, I don't know if you are
I completely understand what you're saying. I think one of the comments at my book launch and it was in Rosebank a couple of months ago was by Garabo Ledeja, and she said for her why the book was important is that it's more than about alcoholism. It's a multi-layered book which talks to, you know, as Black people, we were sold this dream.
Yes.
And this is the consequence of some of those dreams.
Yes.
And our stories are complicated.
Yes.
They aren't, oh, just chase, you know, study this.
Yeah, it's not linear.
We've got nuances, we've got struggles. And unless we talk about them, you know, people feel like they go through it alone.
Black women also have issues.
Thank you so much, Thando. We're gonna wrap it up. She's available to sign and take pictures. I love that we have a young audience here. When you said that point about you were never in the present, you were living in the future and living in the past. I saw her nodding. It's like, okay, at least we're doing something right. So thank you so much for making the time. Thank you so much for writing a book like this. Beyond alcoholism, there's so many things you tackle here, and you're peeling away the layers of what whether family or society could have told you you're supposed to be, and I really, really love that. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. This was Book Circle Capital, and thank you for coming.